Welcome to Voices in Leadership, where leaders who connect, inspire, and grow come to share their stories live. I'm your host, Dr. Angela J. Buckley. Join us as we explore authentic leadership, gratitude, and the power of connection through powerful conversations with inspiring voices. Let's inspire, uplift, and elevate leadership that truly makes a difference together. Hello, Linda. Welcome to a rainy Friday afternoon here in Central Ohio. How's the weather where you are?
So it's sunny where I am, and I just want to pre-warn that they are doing construction outside on the street. So I don't think it gets through. I got a pretty good mic, but just want to let you know it's sunny enough for them to be doing road construction. Like it's a Chicago thing. Like we have two seasons, right? Winter and construction. So we're in construction.
Well, my mom grew up in Chicago, so we spent all of our summers up there. I am familiar with the construction season of Chicago.
Yes.
So, Linda, I am so excited to invite you today to talk to us about some of your experiences as a corporate communications advisor and how you've helped various business leaders and VCs manage, solve communication and culture challenges in the moments that matter. And really talking about what is kind of hot to topic for me at the moment, mergers and acquisitions, that reorganization and restructuring. And we're seeing so much of that right now. And you've had so much experience with those leadership changes and the turnarounds that happen as a result of technology implementations and workforce reductions. I love to read about your passion for effective communications and how it's reflected in these powerful campaigns that solve problems, achieve strategic business objectives, and deliver high-performance cultures. I see that you have over 30 years of leadership experience serving business leaders as a trusted advisor to design and build powerful corporate identities, high culture performances, and effective integration and change management initiatives. It is so exciting for me to be talking to you about these culture changes and the communications that are associated with that. I'm always talking about culture from a different perspective, so it is helpful to hear your perspective. And so welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'll be trying to resist asking you questions about what are your culture experiences too. So let's make it a dialogue. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we're good with chats, and we're good with having people join in. So we also are live on LinkedIn. So as people join in and ask questions, then we can see that as well. So, Linda, what led you to the path of communications? How did you get here? I'm always curious where people landed and how that journey looked for them.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I think my mom wanted me to be an attorney because I was always good with words and I was good with writing, but I also was like a visual person and was always drawing and coloring, and my older sister encouraged me to pursue the art end, and I kind of like found the middle back in the advertising. I was like, oh, maybe I'll go in advertising where graphics meets words. And so I have a marketing background, a master's in integrated marketing communications. And as I was doing that work, which was really focused on brand, so first of all, my employer was pulling me in on things that were clearly internal communications because they needed a communication support for that kind of messaging, even though I thought I was this brand person. Then over time, I started to realize that the brand is really kind of a yin yang, and it's got an internal component and an external component.
Yes.
And if you're not managing the internal piece well, then the external piece is going to suffer because that's who touches the customer. And so really expanded my notion of what brand meant. But nevertheless, I spent many years in that external facing, external branding space, and kind of during an economic downturn, I had relocated. I had to come back to Illinois, and I come back to Illinois and I'm looking for my next role. And this internal comms role kept popping up. And I was kicking and screaming going, no, I'll just do freelance for you. but I took the role and just fell in love with it. So I've been in the internal space ever since. And what I love about this is I'm using those same skill sets, the messaging, the understanding psychologically, how is messaging landing and how can you move people from here to there and the call to action and all that. But you're doing it to do things like subtly build the culture, like an onion,
Yes.
layer at a time. Every message is adding to that sense of who our collective we is, and helping people accept change, helping people navigate through rough times and all that good stuff. And you're just having such a positive impact, whereas maybe marketing messaging isn't having that same impact on people. So anyways, that's kind of my path.
So the power of words, power of the
Yeah.
pen.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. And as you entered in that communications and cultural space,
Mhm.
was there specific training for change management? So
So
much of what you
I
write about is about change.
Yeah, so I feel like a lot of times, especially as a business owner now, I feel like the catalyst for my clients finding me is usually change, right? That it as much as I think you should be focusing proactively on your employee value proposition and your culture and how you message about recruiting and attracting and retaining and all that internal stuff. I feel like the moment that matters for most of my clients that impacts their employees is when there's some kind of change coming on. So, but I have trained for change management certification, but I've never actually pulled the plug on the certification, which I really should do, but I have not. So there is just a methodology of just making sure that you have a disciplined approach to how you're managing communications throughout a change. So yes, I've done that training, but I also feel like my entire career in the, how do you move an audience from point A to point B in terms of marketing comm is just as relevant as having that stepwise discipline for change management.
So it's very interesting to me because I honestly have never understood why communications owns the change management when the people that are on the floor who are so I'll just preface that my background is continuous improvement, which are projects to change for the purpose of improving, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we always had a change manager that sort of like buzzed around in the background but didn't
Yeah.
actually know the changes. And so we always struggled to understand and define why an HR person was involved in what was happening on the shop floor. They were
So
either
my
not
perspective,
either, so
my
they were
take on
either
that is
okay.
the training I've been through very much assumes that there's a project manager who is different than the change manager,
Yep.
and that the PMP is doing the work that you're talking about. The project
Yes.
manager is saying, is this project making the moves that it needs to make stepwise in order to change the operation, in order to change the project flow, or whatever it is you're changing. That project manager is managing that piece. The change manager is saying, how is all this impacting our people? And so I think there needs to be that partnership. And in fact, the
Yes.
change manager can't possibly manage the project.
Right.
And so it's a different discipline. So I don't know if that makes sense to you, but
It does make sense. I often just felt like they didn't have enough time,
ah,
and I didn't feel that they knew how to manage the measurements of the change, like
ah,
the effectiveness of what they were doing.
got it.
I knew how to manage the effectiveness of my projects, but if they were
Hmm.
in charge of managing the effectiveness of the people, they didn't have any metrics in place. So
Hmm.
they basically put up posters or did something. So felt like there was always something missing because frankly, we ended up giving them the content that they put on the posters anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean,
So
it has to be a partnership.
it
That is
has
for
to be a
sure. Because
partnership. Yeah.
Yeah, because as a communicator, I mean, even just in other types of, not project management type
Yes.
things, but even like a culture change, I'll look at that, right? I like to listen to what do people think about the culture that we have today, and then I want to listen to what the leaders think about the culture we have today, and then what is the ideal culture of the future. And I can make some recommendations like, hey, teams that care for each other and teams that are spending time building relationships so that they can trust each other, they're going to be higher performing teams. I can make those recommendations. But if those things are not central to what the leadership wants,
Mm-hmm.
and what the staff will accept, then it
Yes.
doesn't matter, right? So I think, you're always dependent upon what is the strategy, where are we going, where do we want things to land? And I don't get to make that up. I'm the communicator. I communicate these things, but it's not like Linda's world. And Linda makes all the things the way Linda wants them to be, right? So there always is that dependency upon, what is the ideal that we're trying to achieve. So
I feel like it's also different sizes of organizations.
yeah.
Actually, like some have a dedicated communications person and some don't.
Yeah. Mid-market type organizations that I work with typically do not. And what's
Mhm.
happening is, the reason I say I get brought in when there's like some kind of big disruptive change going on is that most leaders think, well, I can communicate. Why would I need a communications person? We all communicate in this world. That's what we do. That's how we engage. What makes us human. But in terms of how you strategically put that together, how you anticipate how things are going to land, especially when there's like big things going on, and then as a leader or even an HR leader, you're managing the big things that are going on, and
Right.
do you have the bandwidth to do the communications piece well and strategically and methodically? And I think that's why I say I get brought in when these big things go on, because all of a sudden everybody's individual role is imploding. And I would say the same thing going back to your example with the project management piece, right? Is that project manager and the teams that they're helping to facilitate moving from point A to point B, it's usually a big change, right? It's not a small
Yes.
thing. It's a big change. And there's
Yes.
lots of new things that need to be mapped and redone. And let's not lose any of the details. And, the project management and the project team, they need to be focused on those things. And then the change management person is helping to say, okay, how is this impacting people in the real time? And from a bandwidth standpoint, you need those to be separate things. So
Interesting. Yeah, bandwidth, that's true. Bandwidth and focus, right?
yeah,
So a little bit of separation of church and state
yeah.
to kind of get that circular feedback. Interesting. So you say mid-market. Is that the target that you have now,
It is
or?
the target I have now. Because so there's several things about me as a professional. First of
Yeah.
all, I've learned along the way that I really like to build things, and I'm less excited when I'm in maintenance mode over the long haul, right? Like I really love reinventing and creating new campaigns and things like that. And then it's the same old year 8, year 10 that is less appealing to me. And so that's why I decided to flip my head over to the consulting side of the house. But and many companies don't have that repeat thing. They really do use their communicators in a way that is, always forward looking, and that's for the best. But in the mid-market space in particular, they don't usually have the comms people. So you're really part of the team helping to solve, how are we communicating whatever's going on to the people in the organization to get them on board, get them engaged, get them excited about the future and what this change means for us and what this change means for you as an individual and how you fit in. And you really need a person filling that role, but most mid-market firms haven't discovered that yet. So when I talk mid-market, I'm usually saying over 250 employees, because below
Yeah.
that you can kind of get away with just management by walking around like an EO system or something. But
Mhm.
you get larger than that, and that starts to break down a little bit, and then up to 1,000, because by 1,000 most of the time the light bulb's gone on and they've said, let's bring in a comms person, and there's somebody in house. may not
Right.
be somebody who's, deeply experienced, but there's someone at least reaching out and doing the employee communications.
Or newsletters, or
Yeah.
there is a need that's an ongoing. That's more maintenance, right? At a
Yeah.
thousand, I see the maintenance type communications that you're referencing,
Yeah.
technician level
Yes, exactly.
to manage
Exactly.
it, and then it still falls back on the PMPs for the larger things.
Yes, exactly. And you still need someone with that message strategy piece. So,
Yes. Yep. Yep. Okay. And so you've talked about culture. When you
yeah.
come in, when you're brought in for a change, right? Some of these
Yeah.
bigger events. What are you
Yeah.
looking for, and how are you managing that? Not just the strategy, but the actual communications as well.
Yeah. So really what you're trying to do is understand what is it that prompted them to bring me in the first place, right?
Right.
So, I'll pick on mergers and acquisitions because it's a thing that I really focus a lot on, and there are some very predictable things that an organization is going to go through when there's an acquisition and you're trying to integrate the two organizations. And the first thing is, right out of the gate, are you making it be something that the acquired firm is excited about, or are you making it something that is dreadful? I once went through a merger that I was not the comms lead on, but I was experiencing as a employee, and we literally were made to sit for weeks on end and not do any work, right? And so most people started polishing up their resumes. I wrote a business plan because I was like, my out is I'm going to start a business. This was years ago, not this time, but we literally sat around doing nothing for weeks because they said I was in marketing back then, that we're going to freeze the marketing budget, so just hang loose for weeks. And so I mean, I think that those kinds of situations where you're not thinking at all about the audience and how it's impacting them is really what I'm here to help make not be the experience, right? So on
Mhm.
day one, you want it to be exciting and something people are jazzed about. They see their future. They see that it was a smart move for the companies to come together, and that there's a there for you on the other side of this. And so day one can be a huge impactful thing in terms of engagement. And American employee engagement is very, very low. So chances are good that the company's employees already are at that normie 70% are disengaged standpoint. So you want whatever you layer on top of that to be a positive experience that creates
Right.
hope and excitement and potential and what could happen because of this. And you have that first impression opportunity only once. And so I'm a big proponent of, let's plan a great day one that explains why we did this, what we saw in you. Make sure that you understand that your benefits and your pay are going to be solid. Don't be worrying about that at all. You're taken care of. And then also letting them see who the leaders are as people, and like let them talk a little bit about why they're personally excited about the company they're a part of, and the like. So just like helping them feel welcomed and excited. And so day one, that's a big part of it. But then almost immediately behind that, you've got this two leaders in sales and two leaders in IT and so there's this some of the leaders are probably going to leave as a result of the merger, and so, or the two companies coming together, the integration. And so when that happens, some of those people are losing a leader that was the person who hired them, was the person that inspired them, and maybe that person had told them what their future would look like. So now all of a sudden their future is like, wait, why is my path going to be the same? And so all these questions come up. And then you're going to merge those two organizations, because you can't take somebody's leader out and then not put them into an organization with leaders. So now they've experienced a reorg. And then there might be duplication further down the organization. So there might be a layoff or a reduction in workforce. Hopefully not too big, but all of that's very unsettling. So how are you helping people understand what's going on, understand why it's happening, making sure that they know that the people who are exiting are being well cared for, because you're a company that cares about them and cares about people. And then, you get to the other side of that and you maybe want to do a little bit of listening. Like, how about some focus groups just to get a sense of, how are people handling all this change? And, is there anything you should be doing or saying differently to help them, understand? And that's a great opportunity when you're out there talking to people to understand their culture, what they like about it, what they don't like about it, your culture, what you personally as a leader, as a leadership team like about it, don't like about it, and start to chew on what do these two organizations look like coming together. Could you potentially merge the cultures and take the best of both worlds and maybe retire or sunset some behaviors that maybe aren't the best of both worlds? And I think if you're a mid-market firm that hasn't been around for centuries, you have that opportunity to have that flexibility in your culture. If you're a much longer, well-established company, it's harder to say, hey, we're going to start to work. You still can work the culture, but you may not do it with every acquisition that you make. But in the mid-market space, there's this opportunity to take that moment to make the culture what you want it to be in order to succeed as you go forward, and build in more innovation or build in more engagement or whatever the case may be. So anyways, all of that stuff. Did I answer the question? Because I feel like I got on a riff and I was like, hey, I'm talking about how comms fits into this. So you're kind of looking, I guess you're looking at the problem and then you're assessing. I think I need to close it out. You're assessing what are the things that need to happen as you move through these phases, and then how does communication fit into that? And then you determine, well, what are the vehicles that we need to utilize in order to communicate? Some of the time it's a script, right? And it's creating a frequently asked questions document to arm leaders, because some of the messaging needs to be heard very close to the individual and their team. But I also will say that, they say it takes 7 or 8 times hearing something for it to get through to people. So, layering your messaging. So you have that all hands meeting, and then you have the email, and then you have the website or the intranet site that talks about what's going on. But then you also have the leader at the team level who's reinforcing that messaging and maybe making it a little more personal for the team. And so you're layering it so that they're getting that repeated message. And so it's all of the tools at your disposal, not just one of the tools at your disposal. So
true, right. I have often been appreciative of scripts, and then we also had kind of dedicated Q&A so that the speaking points, sometimes we could anticipate the questions based on past, but then we also, at the end of the day, would meet again as supervisors, managers, leaders, and review the questions that came up so that we were giving consistent answers. There's a lot of time and dedication associated to trying to be consistent. And I mean, I've worked in facilities that had up to 4,000 people. So it's hard to be consistent across 4,000 people. Even the guy in the back of the room does not hear the same message as the guy in the front of the room when you do the town halls.
Yeah. Well, because they're not meeting the eye. They're not feeling that same I'm in on the joke, because the leader's making eye contact and joking with the people in front. I will say that you raise a really great point there, because always when I'm handing out scripts, so first of all, I'm like, this is your script. Read it 50 times. Read it 100 times. Read it. Then on the last
time for that. No one ever gives me that much time.
Highlight the words that are going to become a touchstone for you, and then say it in your own words. And you can refer back to your touchstone highlighted words and say, okay, this is where I left off and I kind of went down a rabbit hole, but here's where I'm going to pick it back up. And, you're able to use your own words, but stay to the topic. And then with respect to the FAQs, my approach with FAQs is to say, what is the really freaked out person going to ask, and what is the really excited person going to ask, and what is the fearful person going to ask, and what is the angry person going to ask, right? Because if there's literally some cheese being moved, maybe there's an angry person in the room, right? And so you're going to ask all those questions and you're going to provide those answers. But because of that, you don't hand those FAQs out. You don't post them on a wall, because why would you, if somebody's happy about the change, why would you even remotely give them a sense of why they might look at it as an angry person, right? No. So those stay in your hip pocket. And then finally, and you treat those the same way. You read them and read them and read them, and then you say the thing in your own words. So it's authentic and natural, but
Yeah.
it's aligned across the organization. And then the opener for the FAQs, but also for the larger script is, if you get questions that aren't on this sheet that haven't been addressed here, don't wing it. Because if everyone in the organization is winging it and answering as though how they think about it is the way it's actually going to go, that's where you end up with the water cooler chats where people are like, well, I heard this and I heard this. Well, now the credibility has gone down the drain, right? So you don't wing it. Say, that's a really great question and I'm going to go get an answer and I'll get back to you. Okay. And people can accept that you aren't omniscient and you don't know all the things. And
Right.
so, take that precautionary note, because it's your own credibility that's going to be on the line if you answer the wrong way and it doesn't go that way. So better to err on the side of caution.
So we were talking about moments of matter.
Yes.
And what was interesting to me specifically in the mid-market right now is the number of mergers and acquisitions and the number of organizations, specifically family-owned, generational handover or third gen selling out, right? Like we are facing one of the largest transitions of family-owned businesses in history.
They're not mergers, they're like wholesale sales mostly.
They're sales,
right? It's like a long-time family business that's sold to a new person. So
and how do you come in as a communications expert in a situation like that?
Yeah. So usually there's some kind of an agreement where the previous owner, if it's a one-to-one sale where it's a previous longtime owner who's now sold their business to another, so usually there's some kind of earn off kind of a situation where the previous owner stays with the organization. So that helps with the transition, but it's really about getting in there and understanding, what is the buyer's point of view and what does the buyer like about this business? What are they excited? It's really the same things. What are they excited about? Why did they buy this business? What do they intend to do with it? And then, how is that similar or dissimilar from the previous owner? And how can you merge those two message streams so people can be more accepting of the new leader? And then really leaning into that previous owner to help make sure that their messaging is supportive of the new buyer, and prepping people for what's ahead. Like maybe that new buyer bought the business just to run it as it is because they're really excited about how it was and how it performed. Or maybe they're like, this is just the beginning. I'm getting lots of funding and I'm going to grow this thing. And and so prepping people for the fact that we're going to grow and this is an exciting time. But it also could be, look, you know what? The previous owner allowed these 4 subsets of our business to cooperate and took money out of thriving business A and threw it into not so thriving business D. And we're going to get rid of business D. And so there's going to be some prepping people for what that's going to look like as well and helping people navigate through that. That could result in a layoff, or it could be a repurposing of your role. And it could be that your project goes away. And so how do we retain the people we want to retain through that process? And so it's really about understanding the strategy. And I'm there to support the strategy through communications that bring people along and make things as palatable as possible for the employees if they're on a less than exciting path for where things are going. So,
right. Okay. So, do you have any other further points relative to your organization or your business that I haven't asked you about?
You've been giving me a lot of runway, and I did go off on a riff about M&A. So, I guess the other thing I guess I would say is that, when I talk about moments that matter, it's everything that touches the employee all the way around their entire life cycle, right? So from how they first saw you on the internet and on your website and in the job description, how they first experienced their sense of who you are. It could be how you show up on Glassdoor. So are you managing proactively your Glassdoor presence? Because, and by the way, Glassdoor, like that's where those people that you didn't do a good job exiting are going to show up. So when
Yes.
I say, hey, let's exit people with empathy and make them whole and do the best we can by them, it's not only because they're going to talk to your existing employees that same evening, right? There's going to be phone calls, but then they're also going to show up on Glassdoor. And so, the best you can do to make it clear that you're trying to be a caring leader about what's going to happen to them going forward is really important. So all of those touch points, all the things, that is the sum total of your employment brand, because a brand is a promise. The brand externally is a promise. The brand internally is a promise. And are you living up to who you say you are? And so all those touch points kind of add up to the onion that is your internal brand. So I think that's it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for highlighting the moments that matter and how they fit in together for the employee journey through those sometimes positive changes. And for a few people, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's so positive, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, we all know that when a door closes, a window opens, but sometimes it just doesn't feel breezy enough yet.
And it doesn't feel like that. And like how the door is opened and how are you escorted out? Are you kicked out? Is it, is any effort made to shine a light through that door to make your transition to the new location better? I mean, those things all matter, right?
So, they do all matter. Yes.
Yeah.
So then that brings us to the gratitude portion of our session.
Yeah. Okay.
And I had asked you for a name of a person who had helped you along your leadership journey, entrepreneurial journey. And we are going to co-create an acknowledgement statement using the spirit of acknowledgement method.
Okay.
Okay. So are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. Okay, first of all, who are you choosing to acknowledge today?
So I'm choosing to acknowledge a woman that I used to work with many years ago in the branding half of my career. And her name is Susan Snowden, and she was assigned to me as a mentor and leader for a period of time. When I had just joined a particular organization, and she's a very large personality, very friendly person, very thoughtful, and she taught me many things that have stuck with me throughout my career in terms of just how to navigate the professional world. So, is there a model, or should I just talk about that?
If you give me succinct answers, it'll be easier for me to ask you. I'm going to pull out a few things.
Okay.
So my first question is specifically, what did she do for you? Like, what were those actions? You said mentoring, but specifically, how did she put you on that path?
So I would say there are three things that I learned from her. So one is dressing the part for the environment and the circumstances that you find yourself in. So earlier in my career, before going to that company, I had been in kind of headquarters at manufacturing environment kind of a thing. So business casual was very much the norm, if even that. It could have even just been casual. And so stepping into an organization where the plants and the headquarters were very separated required a different kind of a dress code, and I didn't understand that. I just didn't have that awareness. So she helped me with that, like become aware of what is the dressing the part that is appropriate for this environment, this moment, this circumstance. Even like today, I'm doing a lot of networking. How should I be dressing for networking and things like that?
Yes.
So that's one. Two, one of the first things she did was have me put me through a little model for a development plan. So and she talked about development and that you should always be, like, regardless of where you are in your life, in your career, even if you're on the retirement end of the spectrum, how do you want to learn and grow and continue to thrive and have new experiences and have new learnings? And so the value of having a development plan for yourself, regardless of where you are, so that the things you're learning are helping you get to where you want to be, just how important that was. And so I really love and respect that philosophy and embrace it fully. And then 3 is the value of listening, right? The value of asking questions, getting information, and then just really like listening and probing and striving to understand, and just how important that is as a communicator, obviously, but I think for anyone, like just how important that is in your career trajectory. So,
Okay, so dress, development, and listening,
yes,
correct? Okay.
yes.
What did, so the next in spirit, the next one is P, and it stands for personal. And so what did it cost her? What was the
Hmm.
objectives? Like what would have been an obstacle or extra effort that she would have had to put
Hmm.
in order to be your mentor, in order to do these things?
I think she my perspective, very much enjoyed having that role. She was the kind of person who liked to invest and see
Mhm.
people thrive. I think she turned down those kinds of opportunities when she didn't feel like the recipient was going to be receptive
Okay.
and open to growing and trying and learning new things and seeing what was on the other side. But I think when she had people that were eager to learn and eager to have new experiences, and because she's such a caring person, I think that it fed her the person that she
Yes.
was to do this work. And so, I don't know. I think it was almost like, what did it give her? Did it feed something in her?
So it
Right.
reflected on her character of
Yeah,
caring and developing.
definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. And how did that impact your career?
So in that environment in particular, it helped me to navigate, a much more formal environment than I had been
Mhm.
in previously. And it taught me to, I think in the longer term, taught me to be more aware, situationally aware of what was going on and what the norms were, and how to thrive. And it taught me to listen, obviously, and to be a more, just communication is not just outbound, it's inbound, and you can't do this work if you're not taking that data in. And I think that a lot of leaders overlook that, and they don't listen to their teams, and they don't realize the rich amount of information about how the organization's going by listening to the team, by listening all the stakeholders, by listening to your stakeholders writ large, right? So it was a big lesson, that the power of listening as part
Okay.
of the two-way street of
Mhm.
communication. Um, and then um, and then just like the fact that I think I've treated my life and my career as a learning journey, and I think that
Mm.
it
Mhm.
became much more conscious
Okay.
having gone through that exercise with her, and just the way that she talked about learning and development and the like, it was a big epiphany for me.
So it's very forming in your path.
Yes.
Okay. And SPIR. And so the organization that you were on at the time, did
Yeah.
that did her actions relate back to any of the organizational values for that company?
It's interesting that you say that. So I would say yes, within my division for sure,
That's fine.
right?
Mhm.
Um, my division was a high growth division. They had brought me in to facilitate that growth and to be part of that growth and solving what they were doing. And I think her coming in was a way to get me up and running and functional and supporting that growth right out of the gate, and bringing a different kind of value. I think, in reality, I
Yeah.
think they had wanted her to stay in the division, but she was brought into the division just for this period of time while there were several
Right.
of us that were new. And she got us up and running and rocking, and then she went back to the parent company. Um, do did they reflect the larger organization? I have questions about that because that's the organization that later on in my tenure there merged with another organization, and all things went crazy, and um, both of us ended up leaving the organization as a result of the disruption that occurred. So hard to say,
Okay.
hard to say
Okay.
at the Uber level.
But the high growth at the moment was important.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. That she got not just me, but several others up and running and vocal and and
Doing your
uh,
job effectively.
adding value. Yeah, adding
Mhm.
value. So
Yeah, that's a great way to phrase it. Okay, so when we talk about the spirit of acknowledgement, we talk about specifically identifying what the person did for you. We
mhm,
identify either their personal characteristics that they're displaying, practicing, or any obstacles that they would have had to overcome to be supportive of that specific action. And then we talk about the impact. And often I try to really drive what are metrics. Like if you're
mhm,
inside a company and you're acknowledging an activity, really, how did that activity impact company metrics?
mm, mhm.
Ideally, we have a company that has stated visions and values,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
your actions are aligning to that because your metrics should also be aligning to that. And we would
Mhm.
highlight the difference between metrics and relevance by
Hmm.
talking about the impact. That's the I and the R.
Yeah.
A little bit of the hows
I
and the
will
what,
say
right?
that I came on board during that period of time. The larger company had acquired a business, and that business was, let's call it 250, 300 million in size as a division. And during my tenure, we grew to a billion. So like that's a
Huge.
significant
Those are huge.
growth.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so I would say there definitely were metrics that were reflective
Yeah.
of, right, all the
Yep.
right decisions being made to allow that to happen.
Right. And this is more of a reflective um, acknowledgement, whereas you can really
Yeah.
use this on your day to day, week to week project
Yeah.
management, and you're really
Yeah.
tying this in. So this is a little bit of a twist on that
Yeah. Yeah.
because the next two are inclusive and timely. And again, when you see positive activities taking place in the workplace, you really want to acknowledge them as soon as possible. And you want them to be inclusive, as in public, so that everybody is seeing what you're acknowledging, because that becomes a roadmap for them also for their behaviors and their actions. So, okay. So remind me of your mentor's name,
Susan.
Susan. So can I try to summarize what you told me?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay, let's see. Um, Susan, thank you for the time that you spent with Linda early in her career. You came in during a critical growth period for the organization that coincided with a time where she needed your guidance in navigating dress codes and context and navigating um, development, understanding that lifelong development is something that will carry her career forward, and understanding the importance and the power of listening, and that communications is truly powerful. Communications for leaders is truly a two-way street, internal and external. By pouring into Linda during this critical time period in her growth in her career, you laid the foundation for many of the topics that she has carried forward in her entrepreneurial experience as well, that has made her a successful communications expert. Because of the time that you spent with her, you can see her development and her growth, but also during that very specific time, a significant growth within that organization and managing the flux and the change. So it shows your
Very
dedication
nice.
to training and development.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, yeah, it's sometimes it's hard. It takes us 15 minutes to get down to a 2 or 3 minute sentence.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Um,
that makes sense because, you're kind of, I mean, for me, I'm pulling off of a memory that was like a very rich memory, right?
mhm.
But it's in a capsule, you know? So,
And it's helpful, right? Like having this again for as an experienced communicator, you probably know all those things, but as a person when they're learning an emerging leader, they
yeah,
often don't know how to say much more than thank you. And they
right,
probably truly mean it, but that doesn't necessarily land. And
right.
it's not forming people and it's not telling them why, other than it was a good day, it felt good, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not specific enough to understand love language, to understand the corporate language. And when you start pulling on the specific KPIs and the specific KAIs, you help build that story.
Yeah,
And so many managers do not know how to tell the story between action and metric. And this can help them do that in a positive way where other people begin to start seeing how things are tied together.
yeah. I think taking the time to do that is part of it as well, right? Because you're living in the moment
You
and the
are.
pace of change today is just, I mean, it's like a fire hose. That's almost
It
an
is.
understatement, right? So how often do you take the time to say, I'm going to look at this period of time and this series of activities and with this individual and reflect on that?
But
So,
being intentional, even if you did
yeah,
one per week, and as with all things with practice, right? Practice your
yeah,
scales on the piano, whatever. With reps, you get better and you get faster, and um, it's so valuable to like really put in the effort at first.
yeah.
And there's a little bit of vulnerability. The first couple times I did this, like
Mhm.
didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Um, but you get better at understanding what people see and need and feel. And
Mhm.
you have to know them well enough to know what those obstacles were, what they were overcoming. You know, Joe had to sit at 3 trains to get to work this morning and he still made it on time. How is that even possible?
Yeah.
Probably because he leaves 20 minutes early every other day, right? Or every
Yeah.
day and then to accommodate. But
I don't even
those
think people like know that half the time,
uh,
right? Like,
but but take a hot second to get to know the people who work for you
yeah. Oh,
because
completely agree.
obstacles
Completely agree. Yeah.
those obstacles make a difference, right?
Yeah.
I understand that we're measuring metrics and output, but we can acknowledge the effort that's associated with the input.
Yeah.
And that's when a person starts to feel seen.
That's brilliant.
So
Yeah. Nice.
I didn't mean to be brilliant. I just want people to care, right?
No, it's
And
important.
and
It
and
really
it
is.
drives productivity. It is incredible when we look at the numbers comparing organizations that have a positive gratitude system versus those who don't. It's 9 to
Yeah.
10% difference year over year.
Well, it's that really knowing someone too and what's going on in their
Mhm.
home lives, right?
Yes.
Is someone sick in their family? Are they caring for someone that's taking something out of them or whatever? So, I mean, those things matter. And to your point, helping them feel seen, um, out and beyond the metrics, I think.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Acknowledge what goes in, measure what comes out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a nice way of thinking about it as well, right? Your
Yeah.
communications are in and out, internal and external.
Yeah.
So, Linda, thank you very much for your time today. I have greatly enjoyed this
This
conversation.
has been fun. I know, like really introspective for me too. So,
We could talk culture quite a
Yes.
few times in the future. I feel like we probably have a few things in common as far as that goes.
It's a big topic.
So,
Yeah.
and it's not always a popular topic. So,
It should
but
be more popular. It's very powerful. So happy to come back anytime. This was really fun. So
thank you very much. So we will keep in touch, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
thanks, Angela.
Thank you for joining us on Voices in Leadership, where leaders who connect, inspire, and grow share their stories. I look forward to welcoming you back to our next conversation. In the meantime, visit www.voicesinleadership.live to access show notes, links, and to subscribe and stay connected. And in the spirit of gratitude, let's remember to thank one person near you. Until next time, this is Dr. Angela J. Buckley signing off.